Hanse, good evening. I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. We begin in Ottawa, where a parliamentary committee continues to study Indigenous policing and public safety. On Monday afternoon, the Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs heard from a number of witnesses, including Lloyd Yu of Turtle Island Private Investigators, Chief Michael Yellowback on behalf of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and Hilda Anderson-Pierce of National Family and Survivor Circle. In 2020, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised to draft legislation recognizing First Nations policing as an essential service. But this legislation has yet to be introduced, and advocates continue to complain of inadequate sustainable funding. Yellowback told the committee that the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs is disappointed there is little in this year's budget for First Nations policing.
We are concerned and deeply disappointed that there is no commitment in the budget 2025 to invest in First Nation policing or to establish a new First Nation self-administered policing service in Manitoba anywhere in Canada. In Manitoba, there are no standards for delivery of policing and public safety services in First Nations.
The Liberal government is calling its latest funding announcement a move to strengthen Arctic sovereignty and create economic opportunities in the North. Our APTN reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs takes a look at what several pots of money could mean for the Northwest Territories.
The Northwest Territories, Yukon and Nunavut are all looking for a piece of the federal budget pie.
I'm announcing the $1 billion for a new Arctic infrastructure fund to support major trade and transportation projects that reinforce our sovereignty, enable regional economic development, and better connect to Northern and Indigenous communities.
Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations and MP for the NWT, Rebecca Alty, is in Yellowknife, revealing more details on parts of the Liberal budget. The $1 million funding is part of the broader Trade Diversification Corridor Fund, aimed to move Canadian products to market and move towards the Liberal government's goal of doubling non-USA exports over the next decade.
The funding is for the more major, so whether it's roads, ports, airports, energy, so the big projects. The funding is spread out over 4 years, but there is some opportunity, I would say, on when that money becomes available, and so to be able to accelerate it or to carry it forward.
But some Indigenous leaders say they're concerned over the exclusion of the NWT in the major project selection so far. National Chief of the Dene Nation, George Mackenzie, issued this press release on November 18th, stating concern over the government's promise that First Nations communities would see substantial economic and social benefit from major projects. Minister Alty said these desired NWT major projects still could benefit from various pots of funding.
Tolson, as well as the Mackenzie Valley Highway. Tolson could be considered in the project scope for the Arctic Economic Security Corridor, or it could be considered separate. For the Mackenzie Valley Highway, as it is a highway in just one jurisdiction, it's not the major projects office. What's really needed for Mackenzie Valley Highway is the financing, and so these funds do make that project is eligible for this funding. So
the feds will be opening up the selections process for the $1 billion in funding in the coming weeks. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
A study out of McGill University in Montreal says that climate change could result in a higher rate of contaminant spread in the high Arctic. Published earlier this month, the study claims that warming temperatures and more precipitation are making it easier for subsurface contaminants to spread from more than 2,500 contaminated sites that include industrial and military sites. Drinking water sources in the far north are closely monitored, but researchers warn that the impact on Arctic wildlife is a concern. With the high cost of living through the Arctic, many communities rely on food gathered from the land and sea, mainly through hunting. Cambridge Bay MLA Fred Peterson says the results of this study are very concerning, especially with the other effects of climate change his community is witnessing on an annual basis.
with the warm weather in the fall now, we've had a lot of rain, and then it cooled off quite quickly. So covering the ground where the animals eat from is like a 1-inch sheet of ice right now. So, you know, how are they going to adapt to that, and are they going to be able to feed themselves till they can cross to the mainland themselves over the ice and feed down on the mainland where they do in the wintertime? So, you know, that could affect the number of caribou that can survive that type of thing. You know, it's going to be a lot harder for them to work to be able to eat now.
The Yukon's 12th premier was sworn in over the weekend, along with other members of the territorial government's new cabinet. The territory's conservative-leaning party, the Yukon Party, was sworn in by Commissioner Adeline Weber at a ceremony at the Yukon Arts Centre in Whitehorse on Saturday. Premier Curie Dixon is the first premier to be born in the Yukon. His party won 14 of the territory's 21 seats earlier this month. The swearing-in marks the party's return to power after nearly a decade of Liberal rule. The Assembly of First Nations is expressing their concerns about a recent decision made by the province of Alberta. That story after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Assembly of First Nations expressed their concern over Alberta's use of the notwithstanding clause to, quote, limit the rights of Two-Spirit and trans youth within the province. The notwithstanding clause allows a provincial or territorial government to make laws that override certain parts of the Charter of Rights for up to 5 years. Alberta recently enacted the notwithstanding clause for 3 pieces of legislation impacting transgender people. The legislation will prevent trans people assigned male at birth from participating in women's sports, requires schools to obtain parental consent when a trans student changes their name or pronouns, and prohibits gender-affirming medical treatments for trans minors. In an open letter to Premier Danielle Smith, the chair of AFN's 2S LGBTQ2IA Council, Dwayne Oquan, claimed the province's actions directly threaten the safety of Indigenous youth and can't be used to strip their inherent rights. They call on Alberta to withdraw the legislation or at least exempt Indigenous people from its application. Dwayne Oquan joins us now from Ontario to speak more about this decision made by the province of Alberta. Dwayne, thanks so much for joining us today. To start off, can you tell me a bit about Alberta's new legislation targeting transgender people in the province and why you and the Assembly of First Nations 2S LGBTQ2IA+ Council found it necessary to write their Premier an open letter regarding her use of the notwithstanding clause?
Yes, thank you. So the Premier Smith, the government of Alberta, has proposed to use the notwithstanding clause for 3 pieces of legislation within Alberta that specifically target 2S plus and trans peoples there. What is really concerning with us? Like, first of all, this legislation is concerning, like targeting what members of our Two-Spirit community in Alberta. But the use of the notwithstanding clause, I think that's a bigger picture as well, because that's not just an attack on Two-Spirit people, that's an attack upon Canadians in general, but also it's an attack upon Indigenous people and our rights that are protected under Section 35 of the Constitution.
Dwayne, you mentioned in your letter that these laws directly threaten the safety and dignity and inherent rights of Indigenous youth who are transgender or gender diverse. Can you explain how that is?
Well, you know, we have been, Two-Spirit, we've been part of our Indigenous communities since time immemorial. The Creator put us here to be part of our communities, to help our communities. It's different than the Western perspective when it comes to being gender diverse. Two-Spirit is a sacred role that we play in our communities to help everyone and lift everyone up. So when we start attacking, this is a long line of attacking upon our Two-Spirit people that's taken place over the years. When we look at all that happened within residential schools and the 60s scoop, and just that different Western morals, Western religion come in and telling us that well now we're considered evil and corrupt. So this is just a continuation of that attack that's been taking place over the years by the Crown, and it's attacking a very vulnerable members of our society, and this is the last thing that we need.
What precedent does it set for Alberta to use the notwithstanding clause so the courts can't intervene on legislation affecting the freedoms of transgender people?
It's a little scary. Like I can't imagine what the people are feeling within Alberta, especially the Two-Spirit and trans community, but all Albertans, to have a government just brush aside charter rights just whenever it suits them or whatever the political winds are blowing. That should be frightening to everybody, because who's next? But when it comes to Indigenous rights that are protected under Section 35, the notwithstanding clause can't be used against our Indigenous rights that are protected under the Constitution. When we look at the Chiefs and Assembly, when they established this council, one of the things they talked about is that we've always been, Two-Spirit have always been part of our community, and the Chiefs and Assembly were just reaffirming that, remembering that, and bringing that up once again and bringing it forward. So for us to be part of the community and for the Premier to use the notwithstanding clause to try to strip us of our rights, well, in our opinion, in the letter that we sent to her, is that they don't have that ability to use the notwithstanding clause against us in this way.
Dwayne, finally, do you have any words of encouragement for Indigenous trans people in Alberta or throughout Canada dealing with the impacts of anti-trans rhetoric?
We are standing with you, and we're never going to give up fighting for you and holding you up. And you are amazing, you're beautiful, and we love you. And if one of us are suffering, all of us are suffering. And so all of us are standing up together.
Dwayne, thanks so much for sharing your insight with us. That's Dwayne Oquan, the chair of the Assembly of First Nations 2S LGBTQ2IA+ Council. Thanks, Dwayne. We now want to hear what you think about the story you just saw. Here's how to continue the conversation with us. Or if you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. One of the largest job fairs in Western Canada is tailored for Indigenous people, and it's happening this Monday and Tuesday at the West Edmonton Mall's Ice Palace. Organized by Tribal Chiefs Employment and Training Services and Indigenous Connect, 88 employers from across Alberta are looking to hire First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people looking for employment. A large crowd of potential employees were also on hand looking at the various employment opportunities. A traditional ceremony that included a grand entry and round dance started the event off in a good way.
So a job seeker and a potential employer, they will meet, they will discuss certain things like any opportunities that they have, and the job seeker will bring his resume, and it'll be on the spot job interview and potential hiring right here today and tomorrow.
We're always looking for people. There's a high turnaround. It's hard work working in the elements. You know, you're up at 4:30 in the morning. You don't get home till 8, 9 o'clock at night. It's a for the most part 10 to 5 schedule. So they're away from their families quite a bit. But that's what, you know, that's in the end, it's all about, you know, providing for your family, and the money is good.
Coming up after the break, we'll tell you about 2 stories in Toronto and Vancouver. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Temperatures are slowly dropping in Winnipeg, and Julian Tugas sent in this photo of the Provencher Bridge as ice slowly starts to form on the Red River. Thanks, Julian, for sending us that picture. For the chance to be our next photo of the day, send us your photos to share at aptn.ca. Time now for tomorrow's weather forecast. On the East Coast, St. John's 4, Charlottetown 4. Nujuak -1, the Grand River -1 as well. Val d'Or 2 and cloudy there. Quebec City cloudy and 1. Cloudy in Toronto at 7. Sault Ste. Marie 7. Thunder Bay +1, Wawa +3 and showers. Sunny in Churchill at -4. Thompson -4. Dauphin -3. Princess Harbor -2. Swift Current sunny and -2, Saskatoon -5, Stony Rapids -7, La Ronge -5. Sun's out and high level at -10, Fort McMurray -5. 0 in Lethbridge, Red Deer -3 and cloudy. Vancouver partly cloudy and 7, Kamloops 1. Dease Lake -8, Fort Nelson -10. Old Crow -18, Dawson, sun's out there -19. Norman Wells -10 and sun there. Wrigley -13. Paulatuck -9, Tuktoyaktuk -11. Baker Lake -17, Chesterfield, sun's out in -11. And Resolute -23, Iqaluit -6. A museum in Toronto has reopened its doors after undergoing 16 months of renovations. It's a fresh new look that offers space to house Indigenous ceramic artworks. Here's APTN's Annette Francis with that story.
The Gardner Museum is located in downtown Toronto. The main floor was closed due to the major overhaul. It now features the first ever Indigenous ceramics gallery.
The idea was to really center Indigenous cultural expression at the Gardner, to create a defined area where we could really highlight belongings from different Indigenous communities. We partnered with 2 communities in particular, both Six Nations of the Grand River and a number of nations in Manitoulin Island.
The museum first opened its door 40 years ago. It's the only Canadian museum that's dedicated to ceramics across the globe.
Ceramics is a phenomenal material because it's something that we all have a relationship with in one way or another. It can be a cup, it can be a plate, it can be something in our bathrooms even. It's a medium that is intimately familiar to all of us, and it's something that really has helped to describe what it means to be human over millennia. So many societies around the world have used ceramics to fulfill some of our basic needs.
According to Chief Curator Sequoia Miller, the $15 million transformation has been a hit with the public.
We've been able to put on view so many more ceramics than we have in the past, both within our permanent collection galleries and also with our open collection display cases in various parts of the museum. In this Indigenous gallery, we've brought in a number of belongings that have been loaned to us by individuals, by families, by institutions, so we're also able to bring in entirely new types of work into the museum.
Miller even has some favorites.
In this gallery, I love David Migwan's bowl with the aliens. I think it's really funny, but also really beautiful.
Miller says a new space means Indigenous works will continue to be front and center for everyone to see. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Toronto.
And finally for us, Indigenous artists from across Turtle Island are in Vancouver this week for the annual Intertribal Gathering produced by the Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance. Our Ryan Cunningham has more.
The Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance, or IPA, has been advocating for Indigenous performing artists for over 2 decades. Their intertribal gathering is in a different location each year and showcases local and national Indigenous artists. And this year it's in Vancouver. Cynthia Licker-Sage is the executive director of IPA.
The one thing about the Intertribal Gathering, again being 20 years since manifestation, it's been really, you can see the growth, especially with Indigenous culture too. So it's been really phenomenal and really excited to be in this wonderful venue tonight.
IPA also hosts a conference for other Indigenous not-for-profits where they strategize on how to fight for a self-sustaining critical mass within the Indigenous performing arts community.
This gathering is an open concept, so we determine what we want to talk about, and then we break off into groups, and then we discuss in smaller groups how to advocate for one another, which is super important.
In 1949, the Canadian government established the Royal Commission on National Development in the Arts, Letters and Sciences. It was a response to the overwhelming influence of American culture on Canada and the need to bolster a national cultural identity after World War II. It is known as the Massey Report, and it concluded that the government should play a role in developing art, culture and universities in Canada. There is a section on page 239 called Indian Arts and Crafts, where it says, "This unsatisfactory state of affairs has led some to believe that since the death of true Indian arts is inevitable, Indians should not be encouraged to prolong the existence of arts which, at best, must be artificial and at worst are degenerate. The impact of the white man, with his more advanced civilization and his infinitely superior techniques, resulted in the gradual destruction of the Indian way of life. The Indian arts thus survive only as ghosts or shadows of a dead society. They can never, it is said, regain real form or substance. Indians with creative talent should therefore develop it as other Canadians do, and should receive every encouragement for this purpose. But Indian art, as such, cannot be revived." Thanks to IPA and other arts service organizations, we now have a voice at the federal and provincial levels fighting for Indigenous artists. And this year, they awarded the inaugural Membership Recognition Award to honor the career of musician Sandy Schofield.
Well, I'm going to my grave. I come from a family of musicians for generations upon generations. And so this is what I've inherited. So I'm going to the other side doing this. So it's just my journey. So I suppose it was unexpected, and I'm very happy. I'm happy to be honored and acknowledged, for my life's work, right? Because I certainly have devoted my life to learning my craft.
After 20 years, the Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance continues to support Indigenous artists at all stages of their career. This is Ryan Cunningham with APTN National News, Vancouver.
Thank you, Ryan. And that's your evening newscast for this Monday. Our daytime newscast is back again tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho kwana. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next day.